Hey everybody, I'm Tony Schaefer from What Drives Us, and I'm here with two of my close friends, Russell Frost, who's my co-host on What Drives Us, and Patrick Connor, who you probably know from carswithcords.net. I want to put together a video explaining why my next purchase is going to be a RAV4 Prime. Now, originally, I simply wanted to talk into the camera, and I wanted to explain why I purchased a 2017 Prius Prime, sight unseen, having never test driven it, and why 3 years with the Prius Prime convinced me that the RAV4 Prime is going to be my next purchase. However, I have a hard time just talking into the camera myself. I wanted to bring two very wise men along with me. Now, Russell will argue, of course. Patrick is the wiser of the two, no doubt. So the first thing I wanted to start with is the reason I purchased a Prius Prime completely sight unseen is that I had been driving a Prius since 2004. And 13 years with the same car showed me that Toyota clearly knew what they were doing when it comes to hybrids and hybrid technology. I mean, they've been building them since 1997 when they released it in Japan, and they brought it to the US in, gentlemen, 2001, 2000, 2002, 2000. 2000 was the first generation Prius, and many of them are still on the road, which is impressive in and of itself. And again, you're gonna have to help me with this. 2012, when did they bring the plug-in Prius?
The first one was 2011,
2011.
and then the second one was, oh God, I'm gonna guess, I don't know.
Yeah.
The Prime was 17?
2017, yeah,
think,
yeah. So they had 6 years of runtime with the first generation plug-in Prius to work things out, and then came out with a totally dedicated plug-in Prius on a brand new platform. And I knew going into it that it was going to be a rock solid vehicle, and I have absolutely no regrets. Now, you may be wondering, why am I going to trade in my Prius Prime for a RAV4 Prime? The answer is I'm not. My wife is going to be trading in her 2010 hybrid. It's about that time. She's looking for a new car, and the RAV4 Prime really piqued her interest.
That's cool.
So,
if it's
yeah.
a vehicle that fits her needs, that's the most important thing about this, is understanding your own personal use case and getting a vehicle that works for you.
And that is exactly the underlying theme of pretty much everything we're going to talk about here. Now, who is, in my mind, the target, let's say, target audience for this video? I'm thinking, if you're looking at the RAV4 Prime, you either are already familiar with crossover utility vehicles, you already own a crossover utility vehicle, you're comparing CUVs and SUVs, and you're looking at a hybrid or a plug-in hybrid, or you're just environmentally conscious and want to reduce your fuel consumption. So all of that stuff you already know. We're not going to go into wheelbase, or we may touch on horsepower and stuff because it may come up, but all the other stuff, you can Google all that stuff. What we are going to talk about is what makes a plug-in vehicle so cool. And hopefully we can sway a few people away from getting a hybrid and actually taking that first step into plug-in technology. So,
Right. Great.
Patrick, you, carswithcords.net, when did you buy your first plug-in vehicle?
2007 is when I got my first plug-in vehicle, and it was a Chevy S10 electric pickup. And a lot of people looked at it and said, oh, it's a conversion? And I was, nope, this was made by General Motors. They only made about 500 of them, and they were mostly sold as fleet vehicles. And mine was at Disneyland, and after they were done with it, they auctioned it off, and I ended up with it. And it was a fun little electric truck. It was a lot of fun.
And what caused you to go in that direction?
I watched the documentary, Who Killed the Electric Car? And I was just angry. It was like, these were out there. They were great. People love them. And I'm a Desert Storm veteran, so I have been to war for oil. And it perverts our entire political system, and it causes pollution. And there just has to be a better way. So I wanted to start driving electric. It took me a while to get to it, I bought books on how to convert, and I started researching conversion projects, and then I was going to do one on a sabbatical from work, and then that didn't happen. And so buying one off the shelf, it was a much better solution for me, and I think for most people. Uh, so that's how I got into it.
And I think it's
Thanks.
important for people to realize, that the early days of plug-in vehicles, of batteries and battery management and charging and everything. I mean, people here in 2020 still have some 2010, 2005 hangups of stuff they heard, from, oh, this was a long time ago. Well, plug-in vehicles, they only get, a few miles, and the battery's going to run down, and you have to replace the battery every 5 years. It's going to cost you $15,000 and blah, 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 blah. And it's like all of that stuff has pretty much fallen by the wayside. If you do buy something from a reputable manufacturer, it's going to come with a warranty.
Mm-hmm.
Russell, is California, is it required a 10-year
10-year,
hybrid or
100,000
battery management?
miles. Yeah.
10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. And I know in other states, it's at least 8 years.
Right.
Yeah. That's
So,
pretty much an industry
yeah.
standard these days.
Yeah, and that's not just transmission. That includes the battery management system, the entire hybrid technology and everything. And, like I said, we're now in 2020. Toyota's been making hybrids for 20 years. So, again, just leaning towards, and I'm just trying to sway people that the RAV4 Prime is not such a crazy idea, because I've had a lot of runtime and a lot of experience.
Right. A company like Toyota, they are going to stand behind their product. They don't want to have a bunch of warranty claims that they're going to have to pay for. They're going to do a lot of field testing, crash testing, homologation, all of that. You know that by the time it's for sale to the public, that it's going to be a quality vehicle.
What makes the RAV4 Prime different from the RAV4 Hybrid or from a Prius or whatever? Obviously, it's the RAV4 shape. It's that crossover, taller vehicle. It has Toyota's hybrid synergy drive system in the car, which is a small ICE engine, a gas-powered engine, and a complex but very well vetted, shall we say, system of distributing that power to motor generators, which then drives the vehicle. So it's a combination of gas and electric. The Prime, different from the hybrid, is that it has a longer range, approximately 42 miles of pure electric range that it can run without starting the ICE engine at all. At, I want to say, any speed. Unlike earlier iterations that if you press the gas a little too hard, it would go off and start the motor and it would be embarrassing. You'd be like, why did that happen? So that's what you're getting, kind of a part-time EV and a part-time hybrid. And hopefully the best of both of those worlds with the RAV4 Prime.
Toyota says 42. That's their official stance. But they also say that the Prius Prime can do 25, but I routinely see 35 miles. And on pleasant days when the battery is in its comfortable temperature zone, I can hit 40 miles on a charge.
Wow.
So when they say that the RAV4 Prime is going to do 42, 45 is what I would consider table stakes, and I'm sure people are going to see 50. That's just my expectation.
Right, but it makes sense for them to set expectations that a majority of drivers are going to be able to hit. And there's, you're talking about when it's a comfortable temperature. Well, that's not always the case. It's sometimes 115 degrees in Phoenix or 28 degrees in Minnesota. And so they're looking at, your mileage may vary. Let's just take that to heart.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
But again, Tony's point is well made, that if you train yourself, if you are an experienced hybrid EV driver and you kind of do a few basic things, you can usually easily beat that hybrid MPG and beat that electric vehicle range. If not, just drive it normally. It's a car. It's no big deal. Press on the gas, it'll go, and you'll get what Toyota says, which is that 42 miles of range.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and you don't have to worry if you go over that or you don't get 42. You have a backup system there. And yes, you'll be using a little more gas. It'll cost you a little more per mile, but you're never going to be stranded or have to worry about it. So there's no reason to be hyper fixated on whether you got 38 or 45.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to that point, last week, I was out of town visiting my family, and it's about 400 miles away. So what I did was I drove the Prius Prime, of course, and when I hopped on the interstate, I actually hit a button that takes it out of EV mode and puts it into hybrid mode. And that way I could drive the interstate using the internal combustion engine. And now it drove as a hybrid, but it was using the full battery pack as, as a supplement to the internal combustion engine. The case being, I drove 400 miles and I arrived with more than a quarter tank of gas remaining. In fact, I probably had, three eighths?
Well, in a small gas tank too. We're talking about what, a 12-gallon, 11-gallon gas tank?
Yeah, it's a pretty small gas tank. I refilled it with 8 gallons. Yeah.
Wow.
And then I turned around and drove it back. The exact same. One tank, not even one tank, stopping once for lunch. And then I had to stop at a rest stop because I had coffee at lunch. But
overshare.
Yes, yeah. But even then, driving, because it has the massive battery and because it was able to supplement the driving, my driving at interstate speeds between 60, 70 miles per hour was in the 60 mile per gallon range. Easy, not even trying. Cruise control.
It's a beautiful
just
thing.
That is.
Just driving.
I want to bring up one thing that Tony just brought up, that the RAV4 or the Prius Prime limited in its speed to a certain speed parameter before
80,
it kicks out the electric. Okay. The RAV4 does not have that limitation. It has a bigger battery, and Toyota's obviously changed the battery management software in this vehicle. I know because I drove it, and I was pushed by our friend, star of Who Killed the Electric Car, Chelsea Sexton, to get this information directly from the vehicle, not listen to the Toyota press release or anything, but to push it and see how easy, how hard it was to kick it out of electric mode and make that ICE engine come on. And so the RAV4 Prime is a little bit more, shall we say, an intense of a plug-in than even the Prius Prime.
I also want to reiterate one of the things that we've said earlier, where this vehicle is the best of both worlds. So Tony, you just talked about doing a road trip, hundreds of miles, and you got great gas mileage when you did that. And you didn't have to worry about stopping and charging on the way or anything like that. And then when you're driving it, commuting to work, you're going to be in electric mode. And so then you're not using any gasoline at all. You have no tailpipe emissions. So for your errands, commuting, that kind of runabout town stuff, pure electric mode. If you want to, on a whim, jump in and drive to Vegas, well, you can do that too.
And then you and your fiance go out, and you and your wife come back.
Right, to the Church of Elvis, baby.
Hopefully it's the same person. Yeah. But that is, so you touched on, Patrick, a great segue to how to use the electric portion, and this is one of the big things. And this is something that people literally do not appreciate until you've lived it. It's a whole nother world. And, I work 13 miles away from my home, and I am fortunate in that my employer promotes electric vehicles and does so to such a point that I can charge at work for free.
That's nice.
So I literally do not burn gas. I'm going to say 95% of the time. So what is it, like if I average 12,000 miles a year, I'm going to say 10, 50, 11,000 of those are probably pure electric.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And so what that means is that I just hop in my car and I charge in my garage. I don't have to stand outside when it's 6 degrees here in Chicago, or when it's raining or anything. I pull in, I close the garage door, I plug the car in, and I go inside. And I don't care if it takes 2 hours, 5 hours, or 10 hours, because I'm not going to get back in the car for another, 14 hours.
Right. Yeah,
So,
that's one of the questions that people often ask is, how long does it take to charge? And You just gave the perfect answer is, I don't know. I don't care. How long does your phone
Yeah.
take to charge? I don't know. I plug it in before I go to bed. It's ready the next morning. Did it take an hour, 5 hours? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, it takes 2 seconds. You plug it in and you're done. That's how long it takes.
That's it. Yeah, 2 seconds, literally.
Well,
And
and
you're
that's
talking
the
a lot.
strength of the plug-in hybrid, is that it
Mhm.
is hopefully the best of both worlds. It is mostly electric, but there's the gas thing if the batteries are depleted. So as both Patrick and Tony have said, you plug it into a 110 outlet and it charges overnight, I think in like 6 hours. And in the morning you go and you use up your range. If you want to do what electric vehicle enthusiasts call opportunity charging, maybe you're at the local big chain grocery store or drugstore and hey, look, there's a free charger right there. You plug it in and maybe you get an extra couple of miles. That's awesome. You can also run the RAV4 Prime in a charging mode that will run the gas. It will run the gas motor more often to help charge up those batteries. So lots of options, and that's the thing. Would it be great if everybody had a pure EV? Absolutely, it would be wonderful. But this is a good step. This is a very, very good step.
It is. And
Yeah.
then a lot of people think, oh, there's no infrastructure where I'm at. And there's two answers for that. Well, one, with something like this, you don't need it. You can just use the outlet at your house. And even better if you have your own garage and just plug in there. And the other thing is go to an app like PlugShare, go to plugshare.com, plunk in your zip code, and there's probably a lot more available than you knew of. And just take a look at those. There's even people who are willing to let you charge up at their house because they're so into this. And if people want to drive electric, they will help you. It's and their contact info is there, and it's pretty amazing, the community of people. But with a plug-in hybrid, if you want to do that, great, you're part of that community. If you just want to use it for your own personal needs, you've got all that available to you too.
So as long as we're talking charging, let's talk about how long it takes to charge. Now, if you do plug in the RAV4 Prime into your regular outlet, you have a regular outlet in your garage, a regular 3-prong outlet, they're estimating about 12 hours to charge from a fully depleted battery up to a fully charged battery. Now, as we said before, if you don't deplete the entire battery, if you're like me, you only drive 13 miles, then you're really only putting 13 miles back in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for the XSE, which is the upper package model of the Prime, there is an optional, it's a 6.6 kilowatt onboard charger that will accept level 2 charging, which is the 240 volt level 2 charging you typically think of as like a washing machine or something. And you can charge on that and you can go from 0 to 100 in about 2.5 hours.
Right. So it all depends on how you're using the vehicle. If being able to recharge in 2.5 hours is important to you, then great, get this option. If you're going to be plugging in overnight or not using most of even your electric range in a day, then your normal household outlet's going to work fine. In fact, I have my current daily driver is a Tesla Model X, and for the first 1.5 years I had it, I was just using a regular outlet.
See, now most people would like think you're lying, but I have people ask me all the time if I have a charging system in my home, and I say no. Why didn't you install one?
I eventually did, but I just didn't need it. It was I was using it for commutes, and if I was going on road trips, I was using the supercharger infrastructure. So there was just no need.
Right.
I think the one takeaway from this part of the conversation is, and again, everybody wants to know, everybody wants to have knowledge because knowledge is power and knowledge is good and it helps us make good decisions. But the real key takeaway is don't get lost in the charging numbers and procedures. It's a plug-in hybrid. It manages itself. You plug it in at night, you unplug it when you go to drive it in the morning. That's honestly, that is 98% of it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that fair, Patrick?
Yes, that's a really good takeaway, because if you dive into all this stuff and you're not an electrical engineer, it can be pretty confusing. And it's great if you can figure it out and you understand it, but if you don't, as long as you know, plug it in whenever you can, and and then you're going to have gasoline if you run out of battery, no problem.
Right.
Unless you forget to put gas in it. And then
you still have to do that
you're just an
occasionally.
idiot. Yeah.
Hey, fuel is fuel, right? Yeah. It still needs fuel to run. So one thing I do want to mention is that the RAV4 Prime does not support fast charging. And so what that means is, like Patrick mentioned, the supercharger network, where you can plug in and you just get a buttload of electricity really fast. The RAV4 Prime doesn't support that. And you know what? Neither does the Prius Prime. Some people could look at that and say, well, Toyota really dropped the ball because a plug-in vehicle needs to have fast charging.
Oh.
But you only get like 45 miles of range. How desperate are you to fast charge 45 miles of range? I mean, you've got a tank of gas. Just go with it.
I think the other thing is, though, if you can, we talked a little bit about like that sort of charger anxiety. Oh, I've got to buy a charger. I've got to have an electrician out. I got to put it in the garage or whatever, which is great if you can do it. If you use 240 volt, and Patrick, forgive me, I'm going to rely on you. Is that level 2?
Yes. That's
okay.
level 2.
So level 1, 120 volt standard household circuit, 240 volt like your dryer runs on, or maybe your stove. That will charge the RAV4 Prime in 4.5 hours from 0 to 100. It's much faster, and that with no options, that's just the standard plug it in. So if you have one of those plugs in your garage, you can do that. Or if you have one of those level 2 chargers at your job, where you go to eat or go to buy groceries, you can add some range pretty quick. That's a good thing. Again, it's not something to worry about. It's just something to I guess, have in your knowledge quiver so that you can use it if there's an opportunity.
Right.
Yeah, I've never needed to, I've never had personally, I've never had the need of the anxiety to say, oh, I need to charge my car really fast before I go anywhere. And again, if it's parked in my house, typically it's going to sit there for several hours. So, if it's going to charge in several hours, or if it's going to charge in 2.5 or 4.5, it's no difference to me. Again, we talk about charging overnight. I mean, how little do you sleep that you need it to be charged in 2.5 hours?
Right. If this were some kind of, you were buying it for a taxi service or something, that might be important to you because that would help you save a lot more fuel. You could get a half charge over lunch or whatever. But for normal, other than those niche applications, overnight charging is all you need. One of the questions that I've often heard is people are worried about, oh, do I have to drain the battery all the way before I refill it? And that was an old battery technology from the 90s, but somehow that memory effect has stuck around in people's memories. And the current batteries that we have today have no such requirement. You can charge it whenever you want. Don't worry about it. There's no need to fully cycle it. In fact, that's a little worse for them, but it doesn't matter. The batteries are so well managed that you should be thinking about what works best for you. And if that means get a little bit of a charge whenever you can, or even if it was already full, you just plug it in because you want to run the heater the next morning or whatever, then that's fine. So yeah, you don't ever have to worry about that with modern batteries.
Right. Even to the point that, Toyota buffers the batteries, top and bottom. So they actually make sure that you never fully charge, nor do you ever fully discharge.
Right.
And the RAV4 Prime is spec'd at 18.1 kilowatt hours, I think. And according to some relatively good sources on a little site called priuschat.com, there is a strong speculation that only 16 kilowatt hours is usable, meaning that they did buffer above and below.
Right.
And
and
Toyota
that little
does
bit of
that.
buffering helps the longevity of the batteries.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. The important thing here, again, isn't to focus on the numbers. We all like to have that knowledge. And let me go back. Speaking of priuschat.com, our friends there, way back in the old days, and it still happens, I just bought a used Prius. So I've been looking at some Prius groups on Facebook and stuff, and you see new Prius owners come in, and inevitably new owners that just gone from gas car to a hybrid or to a plug-in hybrid, some of them tend to obsess on what's going on. Is it charging enough? Do I have enough state? Is it charged? And one of the beautiful things about Prius Chat was over and over again, people would get into these little obsessive things. And I get it, and you're allowed, it's your car, you can do that. But 3 words, just drive it. It takes care of itself, okay? And that's sort of the good thing about this technology and about Toyota specifically, is that it takes care of itself. They have excellent battery management. They use good quality batteries. They're guaranteed for a very long time. Just drive it. Have fun, enjoy, do what you got to do. You don't have, if you want to obsessively worry about it and think about the numbers, you can. Hey, it's your car, but you don't have to. You can choose just to drive it.
So Russell, I know that you had the RAV4 Prime for a few days over the summer. What were your general driving impressions?
So Toyota was kind enough to let me borrow a prototype for a few days and drive it. And I think, and Toyota's made no secret of this, they've certainly talked it up. The RAV4 Prime is the 2nd fastest Toyota production vehicle made.
Wow.
Behind the Supra. 0 to 60 in 6 seconds in a Supra, 0 to 60 in 6.7 seconds in a RAV4 Prime. The important thing isn't that number though. I'm here to tell you that if you want that instant torque, that fun factor that electric vehicles deliver, that ICE cars, you have to spend lots of money to get it in an ICE car. The RAV4 Prime delivers that in a huge way. It is so much fun to drive. And it's fun to drive because you're burning electrons and you're going fast, quietly, quickly, right away. It is surprisingly quick for a fairly heavy midsize SUV. It handles really well. It is a blast. So I think that's the important part, is that people hear hybrid and they think Prius. And they think Prius, they think, I'm doing 45 in the right lane on the freeway.
Yeah.
That is, you can do 45 in the right lane on the freeway on a RAV4 Prime. But I'm here to tell you from experience, you can do a lot more than that in the left lane, on an empty freeway, out in the middle of nowhere. Professional driver, closed circuit, do not copy what I'm doing here. Which is to say, the RAV4 Prime hauls ass. And if you think fast cars are fun, I'm here to tell you the RAV4 Prime fits that bill. Or you can buy a Supra.
Now you can bring your kids along with you. You can't do that in the Supra.
Absolutely. Scare the living hell out of the kids. Why not let them scream in their child seats in the back, soccer balls bouncing around, whatever it is, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're at a red light and you need to change lanes as soon as it turns green, stomp on the accelerator. Up to the speed limit. Don't go over it because that would be illegal. But if it's just some random car next to you, you're going to beat them off the line and be able to get over to the lane that you need. And that's just convenient.
And another thing that Chelsea Sexton had asked me is, again, keep in mind, this is not a slow car. And that doesn't mean just in 0 to 30. If you're on the freeway and you're doing whatever it is speed you do in the freeway and you need to pass somebody or something's going on and you want to give it some accelerator pedal, we'll call it, you can, and you will move quite a bit faster very quickly. That power goes throughout the RAV4 range. So
impressive.
Yeah, get one and drive it and you will be very impressed. But Tony, one of the other things I found about the RAV4 Prime, it has several different driving modes. The usual thing that you would expect, right? There's a sport mode that makes it go really fast. I'm telling you, it goes very, very fast. A normal mode and an eco mode that conserves fuel and electricity so that you can get more range out of it. It also has a trail mode. Now, this is not, most SUVs never see the dirt. So I had to go off-road in some local mountains here with this in trail mode. And I'm here to tell you, the all-wheel drive RAV4 Prime handles very well in dirt. In trail mode, it performed very, very well. So are you going to buy an SUV to take it off-road? Not this one, probably. And I don't know that I would recommend it. But If you're that person who's maybe concerned about snow or inclement weather, or maybe you've got a gravel driveway, and you can live with a vehicle that has 8.2 inches of ground clearance and that has a very competently employed all-wheel drive package, the RAV4 Prime is an excellent choice.
So one of the things, Patrick, you said you got your truck and then like your Leaf. Did anyone at work or any of your friends ask you if your electric bill went up?
Oh, yes, they did. I got that question quite a bit, and I was able to tell them, yeah, I pay about $200 or $300 more a year in electricity, and they were like, oh, that's bad. But then there's about $1,000, $1,200 in gasoline that I don't pay for.
See, that's the thing. Yeah, I wanted to lead that in because most people think, well, my electric bill is going to go up, and they stop their calculations right there. And you just have to change electric bill into fuel, and you say, this is my fuel cost. And now you can start comparing the gasoline fuel to the electric fuel. And what you find out is gas is a lot more expensive than electricity.
Yes, and in places like California, electricity is expensive, but so is the gas. So those often scale pretty well together. And depending on what part of the country or the world you're in, using electricity for your fuel is usually about the equivalent of $1 a gallon for gasoline sort of cost.
Yeah. My particular use case, and especially since I get to charge at work, it used to cost me about $1 for the pleasure of going to work and then $1 to go home. So I was paying $2 a day for the pleasure of going into the office every day. And now that I can plug in, that $2 turned into about 70 cents. But because I can charge at work, it's now about 35 cents.
Awesome.
So I'm saving about $1.65, $1.70 every day just by running on electricity.
Yeah, and you think about how many times you drive to work. And you're also having similar savings no matter where you're driving. So that's great. That certainly gives you extra money that you can put towards your retirement or go out to dinner or to movies or whatever you want to do. It frees up some cash in your household budget, which is a great thing.
You could donate it to What Drives Us.
That's true. And if you do take out a car loan or something, you take the gas savings and you put that towards your car loan, and now the cost of your car goes down. A lot of people are concerned. Hybrids and plug-in hybrids cost more than a regular car. So yes, you could run out and buy a regular RAV4 for a lot less. An entry-level RAV4 would be about half the cost of an XSE RAV4 Prime. If you're only worried about money, then that's what then do that. But we're not just talking about money. We're talking about the desire to consume less gasoline and go with a plug-in vehicle. And there is a difference. The RAV4 Prime is more expensive than the RAV4 Hybrid, but it does qualify for $7,500 federal tax incentive.
Yes,
Some states,
I was just going to say that yes, it costs more, but there are incentives for cars with cords and not so much for the other type.
Right,
Yeah.
You're pretty much on your own.
And let's be clear, a gas RAV4, not hybrid, just the straight gas, the cheapest version, right? $26,000 is the base price. So if you're talking about the top level trim RAV4 Prime, which is $41,000, minus that $7,500 plus whatever your state may or may not offer.
And some utilities also offer incentives.
Yeah,
So
you're not talking about a huge difference.
Right, and that's, again, it's important for people to, like I said, when you're comparing, fuel, you have to work out, gasoline and electric. And now if you're looking at, whether you're going to get a hybrid or you're going to get a Prime, and then like which model or package or options you're going to get, your spreadsheet's going to get a little bigger because now you're going to start adding not only your fuel cost savings, but your federal incentives, any state incentives, any, like Patrick said, utility incentives. And look around. you know, you go online and you should be able to pretty easily find incentives for your particular area.
Right. Yeah. I would recommend checking your state Department of Energy. They often list all the incentives that are available within the state, and they might even have one themselves.
So that's about all we've got. I, again, wanted to make this video because I wanted to explain exactly to you, the viewers, and I thank you if you've watched all the way through. I wanted to explain why my next purchase was going to be a RAV4 Prime, and it's going to be my wife's car, and hopefully when she's not looking, I'll get to drive it from time to time. But I will have my Prius Prime, so I know that I'll still be full electric. So the you know, the goal for us was to be a household with 2 plug-in vehicles, and we both make long trips from time to time throughout the year. So we each wanted something that could go hundreds of miles without having to charge. And we feel that we are making a pretty sound decision. And I hope that if you're on the fence, if you're trying to decide between a standard SUV that burns gas or a hybrid SUV, like maybe a RAV4 hybrid, or going fully with a car with a cord like the RAV4 Prime, hopefully we've given you a few things to think about and maybe even push the weights on the other side of the scale and maybe leans you in that direction. So definitely, if you liked this conversation, give the video a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments or follow-up questions, go ahead and put them in the comments and we'll get to those as soon as we can. And I want to thank profusely, thank you, Russell, thank you, Patrick, for spending some time with me and helping me explain what was on my mind. Certainly, you've really helped bring some life to the conversation. So thanks again, and I hope when you get your hands on one, you will thoroughly enjoy your Toyota RAV4 Prime.